Hello, I am Jared Rasher, and this is the What Do I Know About Running the Game series of videos. I'm going to be talking now about Game Master lessons that I learned from running my online Shadow the Demon Lord game. This is affiliated with the What Do I Know Games Geekdom blog that I also post to, and it's affiliated with the What Do I Know About Actual Play series of videos, where you can see me running the Shadow the Demon Lord game if you don't mind spending 3 hours a pop for 11 sessions. This particular video is going to be a little less focused on how the campaign and the game rules went, which I already did a video about. And this is going to be more about general GMing lessons that I learned either from interacting with the players or from reading comments online, which I love getting comments from people, or just rewatching the videos myself. Now, I'm always hard on myself as a GM. I consider myself a mediocre GM. I'm not a terrible GM, but I have so much room for improvement, especially since I've been doing this since 1985. I feel like I should be better at this, especially for the amount of GMing advice books that I read and podcasts that I listen to. I always want to get better, and I get frustrated that I'm not better at things that I am. But I do always want to at least make sure that I realize when I've made mistakes, even if all I do is in the future realize, yep, I did that exact same stupid thing again. So these are the GM lessons learned from this particular campaign. First off, this is a hard one, but sometimes I am a little bit too easy on players. And what I mean by that is there are a few times when it would be completely logical for a villain. We've established the tone of the campaign. We know it's very lethal. All the players are on board with this. I've communicated it with them. It's something in the rule set, and it's something that we've talked about. And yet, when somebody drops and it would make perfect sense for a villain to do them in, or when it makes perfect sense for a villain to really zero in on one person, I don't do it. There are times when someone is an obvious threat and I injure them a couple times and I feel bad or like that I'm picking on them and I veer away from it. And it's really funny because it's not me picking up on that player not having fun. It's me being worried that that player is not going to have fun, even if they haven't given me any indication that they aren't having any fun. There's entire Kevin's character was really built to take punishment, and I still felt bad a lot of times when I was dishing out too much punishment to him, and that made me cycle back a little bit. Now, if you watch the last couple videos, I did not do that towards the end game. I think as we got closer to the end, I was feeling a little bit better about, things are going to happen the way they happen once we get into that last tier. But early on, there were definitely a few times where I veered away from doing things to people because I didn't want to kick them when they were down. And no GM should kick a player when they're down, but once you've established the tone of the campaign, and they know that there is some danger involved, you also don't want to go too easy on them. So I mean, I'm not going to say I should be a killer GM, but I should probably trust the players to do a little bit better job of taking care of each other. I want to be a fan of the players, but part of being a fan of the players is making sure that they get beat up and knocked around. And sometimes I cycle back from that. So it's something I struggle with. And I don't mean, and I'm sure there's been a few people where I have managed to drop their character or kill them or whatever, and they're probably going, if they watch this, they'll go, really? But to be honest, a lot of times I do feel bad about doing bad things to characters, and sometimes I need to get over that, because if the player is on board with it and everything's above board, that's the way it should go. So it's more a matter of reading the players and the scene, and less about me just being meaner across the board. And it's something I need to get better at. I didn't spend enough time establishing the tone, the connections, and the expectations before the game started. This is something, it really worked out well by the end of the campaign, I think, but there were a few times in the middle where I was a little worried that people were starting to play different games. And everybody was having fun, but I was worried that by the end I wasn't going to be able to bring it together into a cohesive narrative. And it worked out well, but it didn't work out well because I had a brilliant master plan. It worked out well because I had good players that all were invested in bringing it back around. That was nothing on me. And I really could have ensured that better by having a better conversation up front about the tone of this game is going to be dark and serious. People are probably going to die. The end of the world is coming. You guys should have a reason to work together. You can have whatever quirks you're going to have, all that stuff. I should have had a better discussion with people there. One of the things that came up from talking to people about this was all of our session 0 things. And by the way, if you are not doing a session 0 before a campaign starts, you definitely need to do a session 0 before a campaign starts. I didn't make the mistake of not having a session 0, but I made the mistake of trying to offload the session 0 into all online discussions. And some of the talks that I had with people really indicated that we probably should have had, even if we didn't, broadcast it, we should have had a thing where we were all actually on camera talking to each other in real time about some of these things, because it's very easy to read a comment or skip over a sentence and not quite get what someone's talking about. And that face-to-face communication, being able to hear the tone of voice and to be able to communicate in real time, does a lot better job of communicating your actual intent. So I think in the future, when I go to have a session 0, even for an online game, I'm not just going to establish a community and talk about things and post comments. I'm going to make sure there is actually a face-to-face discussion, so there's a little bit better direct interaction between people. And that's definitely a practice I should pick up for my online games. The one thing that I picked up from someone watching, and I appreciate this criticism because it's absolutely valid, and it is something that I have a problem with. I did not communicate or maintain the tone as well through the game sessions. Shadow the Demon Lord definitely has some black humor in it. It's not necessarily meant to be dead serious all the time, but it's definitely a creepy horror dark fantasy game. It's not a game where people are shining knights that win through the day and don't get their hands dirty. It's also something where, orcs aren't just ugly things that you kill. It's things where monsters are things that will actually, devastate your sanity and cause you to run in fear because they are so horrific and unnatural. And I did not always do a good job of communicating that. Part of the problem with that, and I already discussed the session 0 bit of this, just to make sure that everybody is on board knowing this is actually supposed to skew a little bit more towards horror as well as dark fantasy. But another problem with that is there's a lot of times when, like, if somebody makes a joke or somebody makes an out-of-character comment, instead of acknowledging that, and that's cool, people should be able to communicate the way they want to, but then I, as the GM, am supposed to kind of wrap my arms around that and bring it back to the narrative. And there are too many times when I can't resist throwing a joke in there myself, and that starts to erode the tone. And that's totally on me because I'm the person setting the tone. It's one thing if the players make these jokes and then I say, that was funny, then this happens. That's great. But if somebody says something and they make a joke and I go, hey, here's another joke, let's get even further off topic, that sets a different tone than if one of the players does it. And I am very prone to that. I've done it in just about every game that I've ever done, and I need to get better at not doing it. That's just a personality quirk of mine. Part of that is just because sometimes I worry that if I seem too invested in something, it'll make me seem abnormal or wrong. I love games. I love game settings. I'm very passionate about it, but sometimes being extremely passionate about something, you get a little bit paranoid that people think that you are too passionate about it. So if I can throw in some self-deprecating humor, it's almost like, haha, see, look, I'm not that obsessed about games. I'm okay. I'm a normal human, right? And I'm a little bit too quick to pull that trigger, too. So, some of it is being too self-conscious. Some of it is just me not being able to resist a joke. And that's definitely something I need to work on with my tone. And it'll vary, too, because there are times when I'm running Star Wars and I can throw some jokes in there and it doesn't ruin the tone quite as much because I know Star Wars well enough that I can joke in character sometimes even. But even then, I will go off topic. When the GM goes off topic, it is much different than when a player goes off topic. So, I mean, what I'm saying here isn't no one ever crack a joke outside of your character. What I'm saying is, make your joke and try and get back into character. But if you're a GM, don't do it. You're setting the tone. You have a higher standard to hold yourself to. And I mess that up a lot. And when I do, the tone of the game suffers. And that's completely on me. And that is definitely something that I need to get better at, especially in games that have a much more serious tone. So that's definitely another thing that I need to take to heart and get better at doing. But I'm sure I could come up with lots of other direct GM criticisms. These are just things that came about from conversations with other people in the game and with people online that have seen this, and just for me rewatching this. So if I really wanted to drill down and watch every hour again, I could pick my GMing style apart. But these are the broad strokes, and maybe things that have been different criticisms than other criticisms I level at myself. So just me kind of talking through that. If you have any comments or questions, or you want to discuss any of this thing, go ahead and comment on the video. Look me up on my blog, What Do I Know? Games and Geekdom blog. Look me up on Google+, or look at my Facebook page, which is basically just What Do I Know? And I will be happy to talk to you about these things. I talk way too much, so you get what you pay for if you end up opening a conversation with me. But thank you for watching the video, and hopefully I will talk to you later.